The biggest problem is usually not buying, but selling. And most people will fail at that. Ruthlessly. It's exactly the same as when we had the upward trend at the end of last year, and most people didn't take profits and are now sitting on heavy losses. Most people will have huge difficulties. But today we're going to go through everything quickly and concisely. How, where, what, and when to sell, what you need to pay attention to, and so on. This video offers a lot of value in this regard, summarized briefly and compactly. So go ahead and leave a like and a comment now for this added value. Because actually in principle it's pretty easy. Sell 500 days after the halving and buy 500 days before the next halving. Based on time and data, you would have almost hit the top and had a pretty good shot at catching the bottom to buy in again. Here it's exactly the same. 500 days after the halving you would have almost hit the top, and 500 days before the next halving you would have hit the bottom again. It can really be that simple. No matter what data we look at, Bitcoin has really behaved almost identically in terms of timing and data. That means to some extent you can practically set your watch by when and how you should sell. But now there's also the issue that economically speaking we already have quite a few problems. Economically speaking, the USA is simply at such an interesting point where you just have to say they are so deeply in debt that at some point there will have to be a reset, and this reset must happen. There really is no other way around it. That's all well and good. The recession indicator from the Fed, which has always been accurate so far, is slowly cooling off. That means it looks like we might be avoiding a recession. That's why there's no need to panic, and you shouldn't start coming up with excuses about why things are different this time. We've seen this in every cycle so far. In every cycle, someone comes up with some new reason why things are different this time, or why there won't be a bull run or an altcoin season now. It's the same story every time. Don't let that throw you off. However, we do have different market conditions nowadays. We have companies like JP Morgan, the largest bank in the world, which is now moving towards tokenization and has announced partnerships with Chainlink and Ondo. That really pushes us forward. We have MicroStrategy, which keeps buying more Bitcoin every day. That guy is driving this space forward completely. We have the Bitcoin ETFs, which are investing billions here. And it really looks as if we might never see a bear market again. But that's another misconception. After this bull run, we will see a major correction, and that correction will very likely be over 70%. And whether you can imagine that or not, drill this into your head. We are going to see some really big corrections. That's why it's incredibly important to sell. No matter what anyone tells you, no matter whether you believe a bear market is coming or not. But you can also take advantage of this again. Because with MicroStrategy, it's quite obvious. At some point, the banks will stop providing them with more capital. When that happens, we'll be pretty close to the top. With the ETFs, it's even easier to figure out because back in 2021, we already had the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. And here we saw very clearly from the moment no further institutional inflows came in, we gradually formed our top and then slipped into the bear market. If we no longer see any bullish momentum inflows into our Bitcoin ETFs, we will probably start correcting 2 or 3 weeks later. These are the kinds of things you can pay attention to nowadays. CoinGlass now even has a dedicated page where we have 30 indicators, all of which highlight the Bitcoin top, showing when, how, and where we reach the Bitcoin top. But you also have to understand that probably not every indicator will trigger. Most likely only some of them will trigger, and yet we will still have reached the Bitcoin top. However, it's important to keep something like this in mind. I would become very alert if the Bitcoin price is significantly above the average mining costs. Because when that happens, we know for sure that we're now in overheated territory. You can see that here, the more extreme the Bitcoin price is above the mining costs, the more overheated we are, and the more likely it becomes that at some point we'll see a strong correction again. Because mining costs and the Bitcoin price should generally be in balance. If that's not the case, we know we're now entering overheated territory. That can go well for 2 or 3 months. But the higher it rises, the bigger the bubble becomes, and the more severe the correction will be, of course. It's exactly the same with Bitcoin addresses. The Bitcoin addresses that hold over 1,000 Bitcoin thieves are the people who steer the market, who know what they're doing, and we can clearly see the Bitcoin price in black. Here is the 2013 bull run. When you saw that the people with over 1,000 Bitcoins sold heavily, we formed the Bitcoin top and then moved into the bear market. In 2017, it was exactly the same. Take a look at it. The more dramatically Bitcoin rose, the more they sold. you can clearly see here how this runs in correlation, just in reverse. The higher the Bitcoin price rises, the more aggressively they sell. Be sure to pay attention to this. It's extremely important to watch what the whales are doing, because they're the first to sell. Basically, we can just follow them. If we do that, we're usually on the right track. But now, of course, the question is, what does all this look like for the altcoins? And here, let's take a look at the P-cycle top indicator. For an altcoin season, we always need to enter the overheated zone. When we broke through the purple line here, Bitcoin was still rising strongly, but we were already in the overheated zone, and that's when the altcoins really started to explode. When that happened, we had the altcoin season. That means with the P-cycle top indicator, we need to break through the purple line. Currently, that's $150,000. Then we would very likely be in the overheated zone, and it's very likely that we would then see the rotation into altcoins. Here, we can also clearly take a look at Bitcoin dominance. You know that as well. When we see a drop in Bitcoin dominance, that's exactly when the money gets rotated. And here, I've already marked a few zones. I've marked zones that I was able to represent simply by calculation. When we see a drop in Bitcoin dominance here, the rotation naturally first goes into Ethereum and the mid caps, and I already sell 80% of my altcoins when we're at 46 to 48% Bitcoin dominance. In this range, I already sell 80% of my altcoins, because on average, this has been the best time to get rid of your altcoins. Down here, I would also sell another 20% in this area. But it's very important to understand, when we drop here, in this area, I would already get rid of 80% of all altcoins, and maybe down here, sell the remaining 20%. That's how I envision it. And based on past experience, this has been the best time to sell your altcoins and to maximize your profits. These are the things I pay attention to when I'm thinking about selling any altcoin. Overall, everything is interconnected, and that's something you need to be aware of here. But it's incredibly important to know when to get out, because there's no point in holding through multiple bear markets. It's much more profitable to sell near the top even if it's not the absolute peak hand, than buy back in at lower prices. You can never catch the exact top, and you can never buy in perfectly at the bottom either. You should be clear about this mindset, and I'm making this video now so you can start mentally preparing yourselves for it. Feel free to take screenshots of certain parts of this video, or maybe write them down on a piece of paper yourself, so you really hammer this into your head. Because it's simply important to me that you understand this already now. Better now than during that big phase of euphoria. Because when everything is just going crazy and prices are rising everywhere, it becomes much, much harder to set any rules for yourself, let alone sell any altcoins. And with that, friends, thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.